Okay, I'm just waiting on notifications. Okay, boom. And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a very special edition of Off the Record on the People's Podcast this evening. We have an incredible guest with us today, one who's going to give us some amazing information as well as inspiration, and that is none other than Student Minister Randy Muhammad of Boston, Massachusetts. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam, brother Joshua. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing great, sir. This is an honor to speak with you. And on behalf of myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast, we want to thank you for your sacrifices and the sacrifice of your family for holding it down in Boston, Massachusetts with the teachings. The first question that we have for you, sir, is when did you first hear the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
First of all, again, thank you, my brother, for inviting me on your platform. I'm a fan. You know, I got a chance to watch a lot of the interviews with most of the luminaries of the Nation of Islam,
Yes, sir.
and great show. So thank you for inviting me on, and also, you know, make sure that you give your father the greetings. For he's a brother that I always looked up to. You know, coming up as a young man in the Nation of Islam, he was a supreme captain and always a mover of men, and someone that I truly have a lot of respect and admiration for. So I'm honored to be here. I came into the Nation of Islam in 1988, and also, Brother Joshua, pardon my voice, as you know, we're fasting,
Yes, sir.
and
Yes, sir.
you know, this is Sunday, this is Resurrection Sunday,
Yes,
so
sir. Yes, sir.
we had a great day today, resurrecting the dead. You know, so my voice is a little bit compromised, so pardon me. But I came into the Nation of Islam in 1988.
Mm.
You know, and interesting backstory. You know, I was listening to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I came into the nation by way of hip hop culture. You know,
Okay.
I was a young man that listened to rap. I was an MC, and you know, I was one of those that was inspired by and motivated by Chuck D of Public Enemy.
Okay. Okay.
When he would come out and say that he's a follower of Farrakhan, you know, we would listen to his lyrics, and I was drawn to him because I always was attracted to the militancy. You know, when they came out with the S1Ws, and as a lyricist, I would listen to the lyrics, and listening to Chuck, I knew that there was something different about him, and I would try to decipher his lyrics. And as he kept name dropping the minister, you know, it made me curious as to who Farrakhan is, and that led us to a search. Me and my brother, we was studying this together, and we came into the Nation of Islam together. We found a tape of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, which was from his lecture in 1985 at Madison Square Garden, which was Power at Last,
Yes, sir.
you
Yes,
know,
sir.
and forever. And so that was a very powerful message, you know, that we received the tape and sat down and listened to the tape. And as you know, the minister's lectures are at least 2.5 hours. So usually they were two cassette tapes, but we only had one, you
Mm.
know, and I wasn't the type of young man that liked to go to church or was looking for a minute. I didn't even know that Farrakhan was a religious leader. I just
Mm.
knew Chuck D kept name dropping him. You know what I'm
Yes,
saying?
sir.
So, you know, but we sat there and listened. But for the first time, you know, I could sit and listen to a minister. And when side one finished, we flipped it and put the other side in. And when that finished, I was upset because the lecture wasn't over yet, but we only had one tape of two, you know, but that drew me to listening to the minister. I found out where he was on the radio. We had a radio program here in Boston, and I would tune in once I found out that he was on. And one Sunday morning, you know, I believe it was in November of 1988, I was listening to the radio broadcast, and they would play the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for like 45 minutes. And then the last 15 minutes would be commentary and announcements, local commentary. And the brother that was speaking that morning announced that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was actually in town, you
Mm.
know, and invited us to come to the mosque. And so that was my first visit to the mosque. I didn't know at the time, and this is a remarkable story, that the reason why the minister was in town was because his mother had passed away.
Mm.
And I didn't even know that they lived in Boston. but his mother was in Boston, and he came to Boston to bury his mother. But, unlike most of us, and we have a death in the family, and we go into mourning, we take time off of work, and we just want to be by ourselves. The minister, even dealing with the loss of his mother and coming to town to bury his mother, he did not shirk from his responsibilities. Not that it would have been considered shirking anyways, but he still made it a point to go to the mosque and teach. And
Mm.
because he did that, that's how I came into the Nation of Islam. That was my first time seeing the minister in person, and the rest is history.
Beautiful story. All praises due to
Oh,
Allah.
praise
Yes, sir.
Allah.
Excellent. And people are showing you love all across the country. And my sister sends the greetings, Sister Naima sends the greetings. And thank everyone who's showing love to Student Minister Randy. Please let us know what city you're from once we put this on YouTube as well. Okay, great. So now you when you see the Most High Missiles Farrakhan, what was it about him that made you think that he was different than a political figure or an activist, that he was in fact divinely guided? What was it, or when was it that you saw that?
When I heard the minister on that tape, it was love at first here.
Mm.
I mean, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't even know he was a religious leader. I just wanted to know, who is this guy that Chuck D keep talking about? And so, you know, it was really love at first here, because everything that he was I've never heard no one speak like that. So passionate in defense of Black people, and the way that he was able to talk about our history and explain how we are where we are, and then how he was able to give a cohesive plan moving forward. I eventually got a chance to see the whole tape, and actually I watched it on video. And when I watched the video version of it, the love grew even deeper,
Mm.
because in the opening of the video, he had a delegation of brothers from Puerto Rico that spoke. I'm Puerto Rican. I'm of Puerto Rican descent.
Mm.
I'm actually 100% Puerto Rican, but I was born and raised here in Boston. But my mother and father are from Puerto Rico. And so, you know, seeing that he had a Puerto Rican delegation up there, and then also seeing that he had a Native American delegation up there, along with the Black nationalists, that was near and dear to me as a, what folks call nowadays Afro Latino. But as a Black man who is Puerto Rican, I always knew my roots, and I knew the roots from our African brothers and sisters. I knew that in my blood is the blood of the Native Americans, who mixed their blood with the Africans. And of course, we know the slave master mixed his blood in there through raping our women. But the history of these two people, the Black and the brown, or the Black and the red, I was really drawn to that, and to see the minister weave that together so beautifully with with the African Americans, or the Black nationalists, that also resonated strongly with me. How he brought us as one, and was speaking in defense of us and our condition, and showing us how we got to that position, and then also showing us how we can get out of that position. I've never heard no one speak like that before.
Beautiful. Yes, sir. All praises due to Allah. And I'm glad that you heard it. Honest Dripping says, Assalamu alaikum, family. Sister Miriam says, Assalamu alaikum. And thank everyone who continues to show love to our brother, student minister, Randy Muhammad of Boston, Massachusetts. Okay, great. How did your family and friends feel once you accepted the teachings?
Well, my family, my immediate family, there was mixed feelings and controversy, right?
Yes.
That's the road that we have to travel, whenever you are called by God. And so again, we thank Allah for the minister giving that to us in the study guide, but it's real. What I found was that there were some members of my friends and family that were very critical of the minister, because I was in love with him, and what he was saying. And really, I felt robbed, because at this point, I was 16. I was still young. I was 16 going on 17, but I grew up very fast. I'm the youngest out of a family of 8. I have 5 older brothers and 2 older sisters.
Mm.
And so I grew up very fast in the streets, and was exposed to a lot of things. But I felt, where was this man all my life? Why am I just finding out about him? So I started asking people, do you know who Farrakhan is? Have you ever heard this before? And some who said they knew who he was would have said, well, you got to be careful with him, or he's a racist, or he's this, or he's that, you know. And that began my journey at defending Farrakhan. I'm not even a nation. I'm like, what do you mean he's that? I didn't hear that. Why do you say he's that? That's not what he is. So right there, I'm defending the minister, from that. And but as they seen my growth in the nation, and they seen me take it very serious, and they seen the transformation that the teachings were having with me, then they really came around, those who had something to say, and they came to really appreciate the minister. There was some who might have said, well, you're Puerto Rican, that's a black thing, like, why you with that, we different. And again, it just made me to go into defense mode. What do you mean we different? How we different? you know and so there was mixed feelings and controversy, but I didn't let that stop me. And eventually, all of those who might have been critical, um, and had something negative to say, or thought that I was making a mistake, they have all come around and realized that they are very proud of the decision I made. I had one aunt who was very close to me, um, my cousin, her son. We really were like two peas in a pod. We was born 1 month apart from each other, so we was real close, me and my cousin, and my aunt. I spent a lot of time at her house, and she was very uh, against me coming into the nation because she was in the church, and she would always, when I would come around, she would get on me about it and kind of be critical, you know. But as I stayed the course, you know, I've seen my aunt who eventually turned around and said, I'm proud of what you're doing. I'm proud of the man that you have become. And then she started to tell me, can you take my son with you? Because she's seen the two trajectories, because we were two peas in a pod. We were doing the same thing. We were together, but she's seen the two different directions that our lives went, the two different paths. And she came around, and she wanted to come to the mosque. My aunt has since returned to Allah, so may Allah be pleased with her. But she came full circle. And I would say this to any young believer coming into the Nation of Islam: there's gonna be mixed feelings and controversy. You don't have to argue with your people. The best example is your way of life, and you showing them the good that the religion can produce in you. That will make them have a greater love and respect for the teachings. All praises due to Allah.
All praises to Allah. Excellent, excellent teacher, brother minister. Yes, sir. Okay, well, are you and your cousin, are y'all close still?
Yes, that's still, we like brothers, but he stayed his way. I try to bring him to the mosque. He visited the mosque. He came to the mosque, but in his heart of hearts, he believes, and he respects the teachings. He loves the teachings, and he always loved me, and I always love him. But he just um, has not been able to bring himself to fall in fully. I leave hope out there, and I pray to Allah that eventually, at some point, that he will come in with me. I try to get him as often as I can, but there are many of our people who, and my experience is that most of my close family and friends who I've exposed to the teachings have grown to embrace the teachings and love the teachings, and some are even consider themselves believers, but they're just not active in the mosque and haven't haven't been able to come all the way in and submit 100%. But we hold our hope, pray to Allah that in His own good time, that He will bring them where they desire to be.
Yes, sir. My next question for you is, speaking on the Black and brown love, what can we do to unite here? And growing up in where I grew up in Naperville outside of Chicago, um, Chicago's divided by many things, but we got gang culture, Latin Kings, right? It's a divide between the Black and brown. In the South, it's similar in Atlanta, but it's not as bad as it was in Chicago.
Right.
Here and all across the country and around the world, what can we do to strengthen the unity between the Black man and the brown man?
I think that knowledge reigns supreme, right? Another throwback to my hip hop era.
Yes, sir.
KRS
Yes,
One,
sir.
one of my favorite rappers.
Yes, sir.
But but no, our people are suffering from the lack of knowledge, and so we know that uh, the way the enemy has brought us up, he's made us to hate Black. So you have Black folks, so-called African Americans that don't like being Black. You know, how many times we're out there with the final call? I know it's happened to me, where I will come up and usually I say, "Hey, Black man, how you doing? Final call newspaper? I'm not. Who you calling Black? I ain't Black." You know, some get offended by being called Black. I ain't Black. I'm brown. Or I'm African American, or you know, and then you see some of us that don't like our features. So we get money and we want to get a nose job, or we go and we dye our hair blonde, or we go and buy contacts that are hazel or blue or green, or we go and we marry outside of our race. We want to find a white woman, or sisters may want to get a white man. All of that is rooted in self-hatred, and is also rooted that self-hatred is rooted in a lack of knowledge of self. Because when you know yourself, you will love yourself. And that's one of the things that I vividly remember from seeing the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad under the guidance of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. When I started to learn the knowledge of myself, it made me to love Black people. And I would be driving and I could see a brother, and that brother may not even know who he is. He may be thugged out and looking rough and maybe even mean mugging, right?
Yes, sir.
But in my mind, I'm looking at him as God. I know that he's a God. He may not know he's a God, but I know who he is. So I love that brother, regardless to what condition he's in. I love that sister because I know who they really are. And so that self-hatred is rooted because we don't know who we are. The enemy told us that we was niggas, that we was 3/5 of a human being, right? And so I think that as we teach the knowledge of self to our people, then that would engender love. So as those who are so-called African Americans can know they're Black, know they so-called African Americans, and still not like being Black. So imagine those of us who may be so-called Latino, right? Who got a different language. We Black too, but we got a little out because we speak a different language. So we don't like being Black either because we have that same self-hatred. But what breaks that is the knowledge of self. And so how do we bring Black and brown unity? Is by giving our people a thorough knowledge of themselves, because we got to take it to the root. And if we show our so-called Latino family, most of them do know that their origins or that they have Black blood in their DNA. Most of them do know that. And so we got to go back to the common denominator, and that we all come from the original man. And so we are the original indigenous people. And so when we speak on that level, not just as an African American, but as an original man, see, the language is very key. Because if you go to a so-called Latino and say, like I would just say, "Hey, Black man, peace, Black man," they don't know that. So they're gonna throw their hands up. Whoa, I'm not Black. I'm. But but if you go to them and tell them and teach them that you are the original man, that you are an indigenous people, you are natural, and so is the so-called African American, and we are one people, then we could break those we could build those bonds, break those barriers, and bring unity to our people.
All praise due to Allah. Yes, sir.
Voila.
Excellent job. And people were saying, show love, my sister's name, so all praise due to Allah as well. Yes, sir. Now, Minister Randy, what was it like for you meeting the Most Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for the first time?
Oh my goodness. You know, the first time that I met the minister, well, I seen him that first time, but I didn't get a chance to meet him. When I first came to the mosque in '88, he was there and I was there. But I was involved in a gang back then. That was in the late '80s, and the gang stuff was really um growing in Boston. And I was involved with one of the local gangs. Um, and so going to the mosque, I had to pass the mosque right now, mosque number 11 in Grove Hall is right in the heart of the Black community. But coming from where I was coming from, I had to pass another major gang that was on Interville Street. Uh, then when you go to the mosque in Grove Hall, the next block over was Castlegate, another major gang in Boston at that time. And then to the right is a Humboldt, another major gang. So here I am coming from Orchard Park projects, and I'm going into the heart, into the center of three known gangs. So I couldn't go by myself. We just didn't move that way. So when I heard the minister was there, I called one of my mans up. Listen, man, we going to the mosque. So one of my brothers came with me. He didn't love the minister like I love the minister. He wasn't listening to the minister like I was loved. He wasn't going for the reason I was going. He was only going to have my back.
Yes, sir.
So when the minister finished the lecture, he was already antsy and ready to go. I didn't even get a chance to stay there to hear the acceptances, because when he closed the lecture, we left. But but that was my first time seeing him in person. And when I left, I was feeling so good. I never felt that way before. And I wondered, was the mosque experience that good every week, or was it just when the minister was there? So that made me want to go back the following week, because it was like, it's like you get a hit of, for those in the streets, you get a good hit of some good drugs, and you want to go back and taste that again.
Yes, sir.
And that's how I was. I was fiending after that experience. I wanted to go back, and that drew me back to the mosque. And that's where I first heard Minister Emeritus Don Muhammad, and I accepted that day. I first got a chance to meet the minister when he visited Boston, um, but it was a brief meeting because I was a soldier and I was on post. So I was in the area, and he was there, gave me the greetings briefly, but I was on post. But the time that I first got a chance to meet the minister um, was when I was blessed. I was doing prison ministry, and I was blessed to bring the minister into the prisons that I was going to. I brought him to the South Bay House of Correction, which was the county jail, and that was the time where I met him, and Minister Don literally introduced me to him as as his student minister, as his prison representative, and I got to I spent time, and it was just it's really just mind blowing to me to have the opportunity to meet this man who I have so much love and admiration for, and just to be able to serve and to meet him on that capacity where he can come in and minister to the inmates that I've been ministering to. And that was actually the first time I got an opportunity to open up for the minister, which just blew my mind that I had to speak before the minister speak, and so that was one thing that I could check off my bucket list. I got a chance to meet the man of God, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, it was one of the greatest feelings in the world.
Beautiful. Yes, sir. All praise due to Allah. We're going to stay right there. Sister Minister Aisha Muhammad out of Phoenix says, teach to your speaking, your teaching. Um, what what is it like being a minister in the prison? What is that like?
It's interesting. I came up doing it. I started my prison ministry at 21,
Mm,
and really I was going even younger than that because when I first came in the nation, being someone that was from the streets, gang involved, I was invited with the brother, student minister Rodney Muhammad, who was running the prison program at that time.
mm,
He was the assistant minister to Minister Don. He was running the prison program, and seeing that I was from that, he invited me to go into the prison as a young man. So I was going in, as young as 18 and 19. I was going in, and it was interesting because whenever I would go into the prison, I mean, literally when I first started going volunteering, my brother was in there, you know,
mm,
and so I would always see guys that I knew from my neighborhood, whether it was, relatives. I had relatives who was incarcerated. I had brothers who was incarcerated. I had personal friends, guys that I ran with. So it was kind of a natural thing to me going in, you know, um, and I felt comfortable there. Uh, and then when I became a chaplain, that was very interesting because I was a young man. It was different than going in as volunteering. But I was a little bit trepidatious, when going in initially as a chaplain and really having the um, the whole weight of that ministry on my shoulders. It was different when I'm going in with somebody else, but now I'm going in and it's just me in there, But it was a wonderful experience. Uh, Ministering in the prison helped me to cultivate my talents as a speaker, as a minister, um, and it allowed me to preach. I was preaching in the prisons, and eventually I started off in the county jail, and then I ended up working to establish a chaplaincy in the state prison.
mm,
First time there was ever a chaplaincy in the state. I was the first and only Nation of Islam chaplain in the Massachusetts Department of Corrections, where I was actually hired as a chaplain, and I was ministering in 9 prisons.
mm,
So I would preach literally every day, and I will go in and give our version of a Sunday lecture. I will have study group, and I would have, almost like an FOI class for the brothers that accepted and who wanted to know more. So doing that work, and of course, you have to counsel the men who are dealing with a lot of trauma, a lot of problems. You know, um, some of the men, have lost family members while they was in prison, and I would have to bring the news to them that they lost a loved one, and I would have to minister to them through that, and counsel them through that. And so doing that work really allowed me to grow as a minister, as a pastor, so I thank Allah for that. And it was, I think, very rewarding in the sense that when you're speaking in prisons, you're speaking to a captive audience. And the brothers are more, I would say, more receptive to the
mm,
truth
mm,
because in some way they know they made a mistake. They know that what they was doing failed them, right? And they're
mm,
looking to change, and so they're looking for change, and they're open, and so and they come in every week because they ain't got nowhere else to go. And so I found it very rewarding because it was gave me an opportunity to minister and to really build these men up, and I got a chance to see many men who have come out of prison and by the grace of God joined the ranks of the Nation of Islam. and are now out here living productive lives as husbands, as fathers, as businessmen. And so it truly was and is a rewarding experience. I have an opportunity to see as a chaplain the better side of human nature. You said, well, what do you
Mm,
mean by that? A lot of times when people would hear me tell them I'm a chaplain, I go into the prisons, they would say, wow, you're not scared? You know, how is that? That's rough. And because in the mind of most people, when you think about uh, a prisoner, oftentimes the image in your mind is the image of their worst mistake. You know, when they might have been under the influence, obviously they didn't have knowledge of stuff. So you see the crime on the news, such and such shot such and such, this person killed this person, you know, and usually we say, man, that's horrible. Lock them up, throw away the key, right? Because you're seeing and focusing on the worst,
mm,
really their worst of behavior, the worst moment of their life. As a chaplain, I got a chance to see the other side of that
mm.
same person who might have been a gang member, who might have been, you know, a drug addict, who might have been a killer, who might have been a armed robber, whatever it was. You know, we're taught in the nation that our crime does not define us.
Mm.
You know, I heard the minister say this when he would go into prisons. You are not defined by the crime that you committed, right? And so we're taught not to just look at the crime that they did, but look beyond that. We got to look beyond their faults and see their needs.
Yes, sir.
And what I find is that as we begin to teach them the knowledge of themselves, Allah has blessed me to be able to see the transformative effect of the teachings. We're the most incorrigible of our people, able to be reformed and become this different human being who is kind, who is gentle, who is thoughtful, who is intellectual, who is compassionate. And so I got a chance to see that even those that may have done the worst crime, there's still some good in them, worthy of being redeemed. And so I think that that was a blessing and a lesson for me that I carry with me everywhere I go. All praises due to Allah.
All praises due to Allah. Excellent teaching, Brother Minister. Yes, sir. Sister Captain Brenda says, all praises due to Allah, better side of human nature. Sister Minister Aisha says, Islam dignifies and people showing you love all across the country. We have a few more
Praises
questions
due
for you,
to
Brother
Allah.
Minister, but we have a quick 60-second commercial break for all of the
Praises
sponsors
due to
of the
Allah.
People's Podcast. This holy month of Ramadan, I want to thank everyone who continues to send love and random donations and sponsorships, like, shares, and subscribes on YouTube. Everything is greatly appreciated. Please cash app and $ the People's Podcast. My brother Rashad, Street Premier Media Production. He has a 4K camera and a drone. He does television and film editing. My sister Miriam, ABC I Love Me, children's book, coloring book, and now Spanish book. Like our brother who's from Puerto Rico. ABC I Love Me. Please get that book on Amazon. My sister Naima, Stay on Point Dance Academy, LLC. She teaches ballet virtually to young girls all across the country. Right here in the studios of Atlanta, Georgia. We love our tiny dancers. Rock Communications. If you're working on a book and you need copy editing, project management, content development, or media relations, please reach out to Rock Communications. Fashion Guys, Urban Streetwear for men and boys, 314-329-6009. He'll keep you dressed in the best of fashion. Student Minister Robert L. Muhammad out of Austin, Texas. Conflict mediation, squashing the beef throughout the Southwest region. He does a phenomenal job. His wife, Sister Fudia Muhammad, Children of the Most High, giving birth to a God in the Science of Child Rearing. Please get her book. Sister Sherry Muhammad, AsiaticMinds.com. She teaches STEM to young kings and queens virtually all across the country. AsiaticMinds.com. Brother Kenneth, bow tie maker extraordinaire. He'll ship bow ties to you anywhere across the nation. Dr. Henry M. Carter, King Henry's Turkey Legs, right here in Atlanta, Georgia. Brother Rashad Muhammad, COVID-19 disinfecting cleaning services out of Chicago. My father's book, A Southern Movement of Christ, AbdulSharif.com. And last but not least, my two books, Cleopatra, which is a children's book, and No Father, No Excuse, both of which are available on Amazon. Right back to our brother. Brother Student Minister Randy of Boston, Massachusetts. Yes, sir. The next question I have for you, sir, is speaking of Minister Don, who I've seen, growing up, we've heard the great legends of, Minister Don in Boston and the work. What was it like for you to have to follow in those footsteps? What was that like?
Wow. I mean, you know, shout out to my big brother, student minister emeritus Don Muhammad, our pioneer. Man, that was a tall order. You know, Minister Don uh, is a giant in Boston. You know, um, Boston was one of the mosques, maybe one of the only mosques that had um, a full laboring staff that come from the Nation of Islam under the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Mm,
And Minister Don, held that post as the minister of Boston for close to 40 years or more. And so he was steady. Now I've seen in other cities there will always be different ministers, there will be changes and whatnot. But Boston was under the leadership of Minister Don for so long, and it was such a steady um, leadership, and his impact and influence is all over, not just Boston, but the entire state, the country, and sometimes even beyond, because he served as the regional minister. Then he served as a national consultant to all the ministers. And I remember that Minister Don would be sent on missions overseas. He
mm,
was instrumental with the study circle in France and in London in their beginning stages. He was influential and instrumental with the study groups in Canada, you know, and he even had some dealings overseas in Africa,
mm.
so and even within the continent of the United States, there will be times where Minister Don will be deployed. When in New York there was a situation where the police tried to run up into the mosque and had a conflict with the FOI,
Yes, sir.
um, and that was a real hostile environment. Minister Don was sent to New York because the police commissioner at that time, Bill Bratton, he was the former commissioner here in Boston. But Minister
Mm,
Don had established a working relationship with Bill Bratton, and Bill Bratton had a decent respect for Minister Don Muhammad. And so Minister Don was sent to New York, and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that it was because of the relationship between Minister Don and Bill Bratton that lives were spared, because Mayor Giuliani at that time, who was the mayor of New York, he had given Bill Bratton orders to go and crack heads
mm,
or to handle the situation. He wanted it to get violent, but
mm,
Bill Bratton refused a direct order from his superior office of the mayor
mm.
because of his relationship and knowing the Nation of Islam and knowing the FOI and
Wow.
knowing Minister Don. Again, when our brother Abdul Malik in LA had a run-in with the police and there was a hostile environment, Minister Don again was deployed to LA to help smooth that situation out. So he was just a consummate diplomat, you know, who was respected by the politicians of Boston, from the city council to the state reps, Congress, and congressmen and women, senators, governors that would take his call, you know, in like this, and so and not only that, but simultaneously he is respected in the streets because he had a cadre of student ministers that were going into the prisons, and he would go into the prisons,
Mm,
and so they loved Minister Don from the streets to the suites. So just trying, to wrap my mind around coming behind the minister, those are some huge, humongous shoes to fill.
yes, sir.
And I can't fill them, but I have to grow into them. But I thank Allah for coming up under the minister and just looking at his example and to be groomed by him, you know. And so those connections that he made, because I was there with him, we can keep those connections there. And I seen how he moved. It's a daunting task, but it is a task that by the grace of Allah and the guidance of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, that I will take on. And when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan came to Boston to retire, Minister Emeritus Don Muhammad, that not that he's retired, because we've heard the minister say we don't retire in the Nation of Islam, right? He said as long as a lion is alive, he's a lion. So we say Minister Emeritus Don, he's still my minister and mentor. But when he was given the position of emeritus minister, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan brought me into the office with Minister Don. And in Minister Don's office, it's like a museum with plaques all over the wall, awards from everyone, from the mayor and congressmen and police commissioners and, this organization and that. And so the minister looked at all that and he said, when I made Minister Don the minister of the mosque, he said, I didn't just send him to the mosque. He said, you have to minister to the whole city.
Yes, sir.
And the minister's influence, Minister Don, was the entire state of Massachusetts. And so he asked me, he said, brother, do you think that you can fill those shoes? And my answer to him was, I said, with the help of Allah and with your guidance, I will do the best that I can. And he laughed and he said, that's the answer. He says, because you won't be able to fill those shoes, but with the help of Allah and my guidance, he says, we will help you to grow into those shoes. And so it is a daunting task that I'm humbled to undergo. And I pray for Allah's guidance and Allah's help in continuing the great work of the Nation of Islam here in this city of Boston under the great example of our beloved Minister Emeritus Don Muhammad.
Oh, praise you to Allah. Beautiful. Yes, sir. Excellent response. And thank you for that amazing history as well, sir. Fear. Being in Boston, gang culture. I mean, just so much I've seen through TV, movies. I'm a big movie buff, TV, listen to music. Boston seems like, what I'm saying, it could be wild. Has there ever been a time where you were faced with fear? And if so, how did you overcome that fear?
Streets, no, by the grace of Allah, brother, one thing that Islam does, it removes the fear, right? So just being who I am and how I came up in the streets, there's already a certain degree of fearlessness, if you will.
Yes, sir.
When you in a gang and you carrying guns and you got a crew and you putting in work, there's a certain way you moving anyways, right? But I will say, there was fear because we had to keep that within our environment. As I told you, when I visited the mosque, I had to I got to bring a homie with me, right? Because all that tough stuff, you tough, but you can get touched outside your hood.
Yes, sir. Yes,
but
sir.
One thing about being in the nation, it removed that, where, I feel like there's no neighborhood in Boston or anywhere in the country that I feel any fear going among my people, and the nation has instilled that. I mean, I've been in the maximum security prisons in Massachusetts. I've been in the place where they have, supposedly the most violent of people. And I walk freely as a chaplain. I don't just go to the chapel, where the service is had or a room. I could walk around the whole institution. I would walk to literally and be in the cell block with inmates, in the yard. And initially I was conscious when I first started in the prison. When I went in, I would make my prayer and face whatever fear was there. It really wasn't fear, but it was concern because it was you entering into real harm. You think about going into a prison and you have individuals that may be serving a natural life bid. They don't have nothing to lose,
Yes, sir.
you know, and it may not all be our people. I'm
Mm.
in prison. There may be some Aryan nations. I'm Nation of Islam, so the threat was real. So I would go in all the time with a prayer. But we say our prayers every morning, and we say, my prayer, my sacrifice, my life, and my death
Oh,
is
what?
all for Allah.
Yes, sir.
So we only, whatever happens to us is only by the grace of Allah. And so we are Muslims. So we already resolved in our heart, right? That if we go, it's only going to be by the permission of Allah. And if Allah permits it, then as Muslims, we're okay with it, you know? And so, but I will pray and go in. But I shortly found out, in my experience here in Massachusetts, that going into prison, um, I was really less concerned about the inmates than I was with the correctional officers.
Mm.
You know, I was really loved and respected by the inmates, and I really never felt fear or anything like that. You know, I realized that they really valued those who were coming in to add value to them. And so, that's my experience in the prison. So being in that environment in the prison with brothers that are killers that have nothing to lose, and Allah blessed me to overcome that fear and to move, somewhat comfortably in that environment. I feel that there's no environment out in the streets that I feel uh, afraid of. One of the things that we're pushing here in Boston is the 10,000 fearless peacemakers. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in 10-15, he made the call for 10,000 fearless men who will be willing to go into the community and stand between the gangs and the guns.
Yes,
And
sir.
so doing that work with the 10,000 fearless brings us back into the neighborhoods. We had a situation, not a situation, but this past week we went into one of the projects who is currently involved in a beef between two projects that's really heating up, that we are looking to try to mediate that conflict. Been deaths on both sides, shootings. And so we went into the project, and we went, and when we go in with the peacemakers, uh, which is not, it's really mostly is FOI, right? Because the FOI are the peacemakers.
Correct.
But we really, I took it as when the minister called for the 10,000 fearless peacemakers, he wasn't just talking to the FOI because we already fearless and we're peacemakers. But he was making the call for our brothers who are not in the Nation of Islam, who can make a commitment to come out and take responsibility to make our communities safe and decent places. And I took it as he was charging us as FOI with leading the charge, but also training the men on how to go into the community, right? And to bring that peace. And so when we go out with the peacemakers, uh, we go out with wearing the orange peacemaker hoodies because there's some that's with us that's not FOI. And so we go out, in that way. We learned some things from Captain Emeritus Dennis Muhammad, who was the founder of the Peacekeepers.
Yes, sir.
Salute to brother Captain Dennis, Captain Emeritus Dennis, for his great work, his mentorship. He provided for us a lot of training. But one of the things that we took was that orange as a universal color of peace. And as he said, the reason why he utilizes the orange is because it's a neutral color. It's very bright. When people see it, it sticks out. And when you go to a construction site, you usually see the orange cones,
Yes, sir.
right? And everybody can see it as a sign of hazard, but it also a sign that there's some construction going on. And so when we're in the community, there's some construction going on.
Mm.
But as we went in, there was a group of brothers that were hanging out in the projects, drinking and doing their thing, you know. But when we went in, one of the brothers recognized me immediately and was like, Brother Randy. Oh man, he was a brother that I ministered to in prison. And he
Mm.
came and embraced me and was really happy to see me. But that was the end. And all the other brothers that were around him that was there, that kind of put them at ease a little bit. And they was able to receive us into their hood, and we had a great conversation about trying to change the climate, but we have to challenge our fear and go into the community, go where our people are at. And if we go in the name of Allah, if we go in the name of peace, then by the grace of Allah, we will be received by our people. And they are so happy when they see us. They're so happy to see that there's some Black men that are out there trying to promote peace, particularly our women and children. Oh, they're so happy when they see us going out there. And they come out, go ahead, Black man. That's right. We love y'all. And so, no, love casts out fear. When you love your people, right, then that makes you lose the fear of them. And we go among them, and we will be received by the grace of Allah.
Beautiful. All praises to Allah. We just have a few more questions for every minute. We know it's Ramadan. You got to break fast. I got to break fast together too.
Yes, sir.
What is your favorite album of all time, sir?
Ooh, man, that is a tough one right there, my brother. I have so many favorite artists. Again, hip hop led me to the Nation of Islam.
Yes, sir.
And so, that Public Enemy album, right?
It takes a nation, a million.
It takes a nation of millions to hold us back. How can that not be my favorite album? When that's what drew me to the Nation of Islam.
Yes, sir.
But I would have to give it up to Public Enemy and Chuck D, and it takes a nation of millions to hold us back. But I love KRS-One, and he has so many great gems where he's always teaching and really edifying our people. Of course, shout out to the God Rakim Allah.
Yes, sir.
Eric being Rakim. Again, my brother from the Poor Righteous Teachers, brother Wise Intelligent, and there's so many. Ice Cube, Death Certificate. My goodness.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That Death Certificate album. What?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And then of course, Tupac. I was a very huge fan of Tupac as well. Me Against the World. So but I would have to give it up to our brother Chuck D and Public Enemy, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be in the Nation of Islam. All praises to Allah. I wouldn't have never heard of Farrakhan.
Yes, sir. And I have one more question for you. And some people showing love. Please continue to like, share, subscribe. Sister Deborah says, everybody's saying great history and just wonderful. Also, if you all want to go back and see the interview I did with the great Chuck D, it's on the People's Podcast page, as well as the S1W, and as well as Professor Griff. So everybody go back, go back and look at the interviews I did. Brother Minister, what would you like your legacy to be, sir?
Oh, brother, I've never stopped to think about legacy, but as I look at the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, as I look at Minister Don, Emeritus Don Muhammad, if I can get a fraction of the work that they have done, then I will be happy. I'm just really trying to carry on tradition. We have great men, before us.
Yes, sir.
That are great men, I mean, great men, not only great orators, great leaders, great ministers, but these are men that are fathers, great husbands, great family men, respected in the community. And so I'm following in those footsteps. And so I don't, I think I'm too young to talk about legacy. I came in young, brother Joshua.
Yes, sir.
I was 16 when I came in, and it's something about for me, anyways, when you come in young, it seems like I was just uh, uh, frozen in that state in my mind. I'm
Yes,
still a
sir.
young man,
Yes, sir. Yes,
even
sir.
though by the grace of God, I'll be going on 50 in another couple of months.
Mm.
But in my mind, I'm still a young man.
Yes,
And
sir.
I think I'm too young to talk about legacy. We got too much work to do. But if I could do a fraction and impact the world, a fraction of what my minister and mentor, Minister Don Muhammad, has done. And obviously, we have the great example of the most honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and I mean, his work is just, you know, I could we could talk for hours just on the minister and his work and what he has done and his accomplishments. So if we can if we can do a fraction of that, I'll be happy. I'll be happy. All praises is due to
All
Allah.
praise due to Allah. Well, yes, sir, bro, minister. We'll talk offline. But we got to try to get you back for part 2 because we got so much more we can go into. But it's
Absolutely.
Ramadan. I'm be respectful of that. And thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for coming on. Thank everybody who's watching. I can't wait to put this on YouTube. This is Joshua Leonard Muhammad signing off for the People's Podcast. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
Thank you very much.